Are you ready? It's time for another great infotaining show filled with power-packed business and life information. Welcome to Your Future Is Now with your host, Jim Grant, and co-host, Don McGrath. Want to know how to create a fantastic TED Talk? Or how you can become an author or a speaker or build your own online business? Maybe it's reaching a level of success in your life that you deserve. Their show is designed to provide information to assist you towards your success and destiny. Each week, Jim and Don will interview a special guest and share exciting lessons. So grab a pen and paper, take some notes. Thanks for joining the show. Now, here's Jim.
And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jim Grant. Your Future Is Now is sponsored by SpeakersPathway.com. And we're also joined today by Dandy Don McGrath. Dandy Don is known as Dandy Don around the world. He's a world-famous author. He's a world-famous rock climber. And the reason why he's known as Dandy Don is because he is just a dandy kind of a guy. Dandy Don, how you doing today, sir?
So good, Jim. I love your introductions myself. My wife, Sylvia, started calling me Dandy Don even, so, I think it's catching, and really excited to be here today, and just going to be a fantastic show.
It really will be. Last week, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you a little recap, we had Jackie Sokola on our show, and please get her podcast if you haven't listened to it or listen to it on iTunes. She talked about how to flip the frustrations of networking events, and what really got mine and Don's attention, she talked about how with 600 new clients that you could generate just from one business card. Because, usually you go to events, you get all these cards and you're talking to people, you come home, you look at this stack of cards, and I don't know about you, Don, but I look at them like, okay, what was this card? Why do I have this card,
We joked last week that, it's funny, we were having the show and I looked like right over my desk and I had this big pile, like a big mat, like it wasn't even stacked neatly. It was just like this. And so that disorganization is, I think, reflects how we typically handle business cards, right? So it was fantastic to have Jackie on the show.
It really was. And she went into great detail, ladies and gentlemen, about a keen eye to spot a profitable and strategic alliance. And she was very, very quickly pointing out it's not what you can get out of that person there. It's what you can do and share and give that person, because it's all about giving. You've got to give first to receive. And she talked about understanding the game. So, ladies and gentlemen, she put on a class show last week, and we're so grateful to be associated with Jackie. She's with the Network Together folks out there in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're going to have their founder and CEO, Mr. Robert Jones, on our show next week. He's been on here before. And also today, Dandy Don, we've got a gentleman that's known as Brian K. Wright. And Brian is no stranger to the airways here at TogaNet. And Robert was very instrumental in introducing us to Brian. And I'm going to let you introduce Brian and share with the things that Brian is doing. We're doing together with Brian. Please, sir.
Absolutely. So, we had the pleasure of being introduced to Brian through Robert Jones at Network Together because they had collaborated together on creating a magazine for Network Together. And we have the pleasure of actually putting an article in this upcoming magazine. So we got together with Brian. Turns out we have a lot of things in common. So we had a fantastic discussion with Brian. Love what he's up to. And so just want to make a warm welcome to Brian. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brian.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm so happy and grateful to be here.
We're glad to have you on board, too. And ladies and gentlemen, we were so blessed with Brian that he's actually going to put us in the November issue of his magazine, Success Profiles Magazine. And when we get started here, would you be kind enough to share a little bit of your background, Brian, with the audience, please?
Sure, I'd be very glad to. So I grew up in Iowa in a small rural farming town. And my graduating class had 58 people in it. So when I say small school, small class, that's what I mean. I've met people who have graduated from smaller classes than that. So I'm not trying to, play top that with anybody. But it certainly, I I knew everybody in my class. And so that was fun. Ended up going to Iowa State University to study communication studies. Ended up going to Nebraska to study adult education, got my master's degree there. Taught public speaking, English composition, and business math at a 2-year business college there in Lincoln, Nebraska for about 5 years. And you might think, wow, what an odd combination of classes. Well, they were all general studies classes, so they were all required. So it was my job to make it fun because people are afraid of one or more of those topics. In fact, I would routinely have people drop the class only to have to take it again because it was a required class. So I tried to minimize that factor and make it fun and make people comfortable in something that they weren't comfortable in. So that was an interesting challenge, and I really enjoyed it. You know, you inspire confidence when someone is able to overcome a fear like that and you get to be part of that. It's really a fun part of the journey to take for sure. And I've carried that forward even to what I'm doing now. Before I got to do what I'm doing now, I worked in the call center world when I moved out to Arizona in 1996, not just being on the phones, but I was a supervisor for a while. I did payroll for one company that had up to 400 people in it at its height. I got to be the trainer in a couple of organizations. So I've gotten to do a lot of different things, and I've been very happy and grateful and blessed for all of that. But I really love doing what I do best, and that is empowering and inspiring people to be the best version of themselves. I do that with my own radio show, Success Profiles Radio, every week. Since January 2012, I interview amazing people who have achieved a world-class level of success in something. I also have Success Profiles Magazine, which is an extension of that brand. And I also ghostwrite books for people. So I help people get their message out to the world, and I help other people to inspire confidence in others. And so that's a wonderful mission, and it doesn't ever feel like work. It really doesn't.
I know exactly what you mean, because Dandy Don and I, as we were going over your accomplishments and all of that, it's amazing how our outlook on life and our why. That's the big thing. Why do we do what we do? Yeah. And our why runs very parallel with yours, Brian, because Dandy Don and I, we created the Speakers Pathway Coalition at speakerspathway.com. And we did it to pay it forward, to help people. In fact, Dandy Don, would you be kind enough just to share with the audience a complimentary gift or two that we have there?
Absolutely. So we are about giving back, and we've got a number of complimentary gifts on speakerspathway.com. If you go to speakerspathway.com, you can't miss it. Like right in the middle of the homepage, it says complimentary gifts. If you click on that, you're going to be brought to a page where we've got several complimentary gifts from our executive training team, and one of them is from Tamara Hunter. Tamara is the executive director of Chemo Buddies for Life, and also won the Next Impactor competition this last summer. Just has tremendous impact around the world. And she's offering a celebration journal for cancer sufferers and sufferers of other diseases. She had cancer. Her daughter had cancer. Her mother had cancer. And so now she helps people make sure that they don't have to travel their cancer journey alone. And so this gift is a comforting tool to help people going on a journey of suffering of some sort of disease to journal every day, to show gratitude for the things that they are grateful for, and have a chance for that outlet, which has been shown to cause better outcomes.
And this goes right hand in hand with what Brian was saying, and I'll give Brian a chance to talk about ghostwriting and why you should write a book in just a second. But it really goes hand in hand, because when you see Tamara and you heard what Brian said about giving back, that's what puts a smile on their face, because every time you see Tamara, she's got a smile on her face, and bless her heart, she's been through a lot. And Brian, you were talking here, or going to mention about your ghostwriting and why someone should write a book. First of all, would you explain ghostwriting, sir?
Well, ghostwriting basically means that someone else is writing your book for you. And a lot of people have their books ghostwritten, especially if you consider people who are well known, whether it's a politician, whether it's a sports figure, whether it's the CEO of a company who may or may not have time to do their own writing. See, people hire ghostwriters for a number of reasons. They either don't have time, or maybe they don't think they have a message to share with the world, or maybe they just don't think they're good enough writers. And I run into a lot of that. In fact, statistics show that over 80% of the people out there want to write a book, but few of those people actually do. So one of the things that I do is not only do I write books myself, but I also write books for other people, or even coach them through the process of writing it for them, or with them, actually. And I've done a few of those too, where I've coached people through the process of writing their book and given them questions to consider and ideas to consider and suggestions. But I will ghostwrite your book for you. And so we talk about what your book is going to be in terms of the topics and the questions that people will want to read about. And then I do recorded interviews with my clients so that I have everything documented, and then I work from there and show them a first draft, and we add, change, subtract, move things around as needed, and it's not done until the client is happy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, Don and I, we work with people, and a lot of people don't have the confidence. They don't think that they have a story in them. They don't know how to do storytelling. And I know that, Dandy Don, that's one of your special classes that you teach in storytelling. Would you share that? Because that goes hand in hand here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that goes hand in hand with writing a book. I mean, a book is actually, if you look at good books, nonfiction books, and even fiction books, they're full of stories. I was just watching a fantastic show on Netflix the other day called The Mind, and they talked about how some of the world expert memorization champions, what they do is they use stories to be able to remember hundreds and hundreds of digits in a row. And so our brains are hardwired for stories. And so the ability to craft a story, whether you're giving a talk, whether you're writing a book, whether you're doing an interview, is incredibly powerful. So I appreciate what you do, Brian, and helping people bring out their stories and then helping them to put that into a professionally written format.
You're very welcome.
It's really amazing how you mentioned that, Don, because back during the history, people were told they would tell parables and they would tell stories because that was the only way that history and information got exchanged. That's the way people could learn, because they didn't have, anything to write anything down with, other than, stone tablets or something. But the vast majority was simply by telling stories because it would stick in their mind. And
when you think,
ladies and gentlemen, we've got a break for a message. We'll be right back.
SpeakersPathway.com is the proud sponsor of Your Future Is Now, a show dedicated and aligned in perfect harmony with the vision and mission of Speakers Pathway. Dr. Stoney Jackson's expertise is on the art of marketing while cultivating a long-term customer relationship in your business world. Do you know what to say or how to deliver your message to complete strangers? If so, Stoney can help you. Tamara Hunter is a cancer survivor and works with people to focus their message or mission to the audience they want to reach. Do you feel called to create a movement to make the world a better place? If so, Tamara can help you. For additional information from any of our executive training directors, go to SpeakersPathway.com. That is, SpeakersPathway.com.
Did you ever notice you buy more groceries when you use a large shopping cart? The shopping cart, or trolley as it was originally called, was invented in 1937 by Sylvan Goldman, owner of 2 Oklahoma City grocery stores. Back then, shoppers carried their food in wicker baskets. One day, Goldman was observing his customers and realized that as soon as their baskets were full or too heavy on their arm, people stopped shopping. Goldman thought if we could somehow give customers 2 baskets, we could do considerably more business. What's another word for a resourceful person? A debrouillard. Goldman put wheels on some folding chairs, attached 2 baskets to the seat, and let the back of the chair act as a handle so the cart could be pushed with one hand. What do you call anything that can be manipulated with one hand? A thumbadoodle.
It's marching down
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jim Grant. Your Future Is Now is sponsored by SpeakersPathway.com. And Dandy Don, you being one of the co-founders of SpeakersPathway.com, you know they got some complimentary gifts there from some of the executive training directors. Would you be kind to share one with us, please?
Absolutely. So we have, if you go to speakerspathway.com, like right in the middle of the page is complimentary gifts. You click on that. That brings you down to a page of all our executive training directors, and each one of them offers a very, very valuable free gift. And one of them is from Dr. Sony Jackson, who's a marketing expert. She's a marketing at email campaigns, has done all of our stuff, right? And so she has a content checklist for converting strangers into clients. So this is a practical checklist that if you do any kind of content that you put out there in the world to attract people, this checklist is super valuable. So you go to that page and just click the Get Free Gift next to Sony's picture and name.
Thank you, sir. And, ladies and gentlemen, we're joined today by Mr. I started to say doctor, Mr. Brian K. Wright. And, Brian, you have the Success Profiles Radio and also Success Profiles Magazine. And we were talking about writing before we went to break. And, Don, you asked a very good question during the break. What was that question, sir?
Yeah, having a book, if you're an expert, if you use your expertise in your business, having a book, I feel, is super valuable. And I wanted to see what Brian's experience with, what has he seen the value of having a book? Because it's hard, and very, very few people actually take the step, as Brian said earlier, of doing that. But I want to hear from Brian his thoughts on the value of having a book, what that means.
Absolutely. Well, having a book gives you added credibility in the marketplace, and you get to enjoy status as an expert. And it's probably more perceived in some people's minds, but hopefully you really are an expert in what you're writing about. But perception is everything. And so if you've got a few people in your market doing what you do, and you are the only one of those people that have written a book, who do you think they're going to call first, or think is probably the best qualified to handle what you want them to do? The person with the book, more likely than not. So it allows you to stand out from your competitors. I would also argue that it affords you extra opportunities because it gives you an income stream selling your book, although I will say that you probably will not become a multimillionaire selling only your book unless you're really well known. But it's what you can do with the book that makes it even more valuable. I have clients who give their book away as a lead generation tool. Say you're at a networking event and you're talking to somebody and they say, hey, do you have a card? No, but I've got a book. Really? This is cool. It's a conversation starter. So that's an added advantage. And not many people give away their book. A lot of people try and sell their book, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to eat somehow. But it's what you can do as a result of the book that counts the most. Extra income opportunities. Yeah,
it gives you a lot of flexibility. And one of the things that I thought about there, and I think, Don, you've mentioned this before, when you give someone a book, you've written 6 books, 4 of them bestsellers, Don. And when you give someone one of your books, they normally keep it, because I keep books when I get books.
Absolutely.
You just don't, because a business card you can throw in the can in a hurry.
And not only that, but they often want you to sign it. I'm pretty famous for giving books away during the talks that I give. Yeah. And it's not, I'm a very generous person, but there's also some strategy behind it, because I would say 9 out of 10 people who get the book will come up afterwards and want me to sign it. So that's a super strong connection.
Absolutely. And I will say my penmanship has improved greatly since my last book came out.
I hear you. That's really something, because a lot of people don't have the confidence. Right. They don't think if they've got the experience or the confidence. And Don and I, we teach them that, hey, you're a subject matter expert on your life and the things that you've acquired. Right. And when you run into that, Brian, how do you encourage people to come out of their safety zone there in their little shell?
Well, that's a really great question, because what I do is I tell people, you have to be comfortable sharing your story, but you also have to be very aware that your story might help somebody. For example, 2 of my clients have overcome drug addiction, years and years and years of drug addiction.
Wow.
And one of them is an addiction counselor in Southern California now. He celebrated being 16 years sober last month. So, yeah, we did his book, and it completed in May. So his book has been out for a few months now. But I can tell he is so much more confident now than he was ever before, because he's got a book. And he's being invited to be on podcasts, and he's been invited to speak at, on online forums. And I think he went somewhere and spoke somewhere in Missouri not that long ago. So, like I said, you get opportunities to do things that you otherwise wouldn't. Had he not written the book, there's a good chance that some, if not all of those opportunities would have never come his way. I have another client who wrote a book about how to use LinkedIn, and he is in network marketing. And so for SEO purposes, he wanted to call his book the LinkedIn Book for Network Marketing. Because you think about it, you go into a bookstore and it's like, I don't remember what that book is called, but it's a book about using LinkedIn for network marketers. Oh, the LinkedIn Book for Network Marketing. There it is. And think about this. Other people who go into a bookstore and say, I want to get a book about how to use LinkedIn. Do you have anything that's specific to network marketing? And they pull it up. It's like, well, right here, the LinkedIn Book for Network Marketing. Oh, that's perfect. I'm going to buy that. So, I mean, the title of your book makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that, because that's what people remembers is what they're wanting to accomplish. And if that title fits into that, my goodness gracious, that's a win-win situation. Yeah. And Dandy Don, I know that you talk a lot about starting with the end result in mind, and that's what Brian was talking about, writing the book for someone else's benefit. Would you share that with us, please?
Yeah, so one of the things that, Jim, you and I see this all the time with speakers, and I think it's the same with a book where you're sharing your message. Many of speakers we hear, and I know authors say, I got a great story. I want to tell my story. I want to tell my story. I want to tell my story. But you know what? If your book is just your story, your mother's going to like it, right? You're going to, your mom and your sister and your brother may like it, and you're going to like it, and you're going to sell 10 copies. But if you can use that story to put together a solution to a problem that others have, that you've come to a solution through the time you've spent, the struggles you've had, and the things you've accomplished. And when you do that, that's the golden recipe.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell my clients all the time, it's great that you want to tell your story, but your friends and family will buy this by default. And then after that, we're going to hit the who cares button. So why should someone buy your book? And I mean, I don't say that to knock them down a step, but just simply to consider, just like you just said, why would someone want to buy your book? What does your book contribute that other books maybe aren't? Well, your story is unique, so you can contribute your story and you can contribute your solutions. And in the case of my friend who went through the drug addiction, he was in jail 4 times, and he finally reached a breaking point. Finally, he reached a point where he realized, I have got to get my things together, my life together, or I may never see my kids again. That was the breaking point. And when you start talking about a man not being able to see his children anymore, that's a big deal.
It certainly is, because, it's just sometimes it takes things like that for a wake-up call. And, Don and I, we tell people every day that, whether you're a speaker or whether you're going to write a book, whatever it might be, even if you're going to do a YouTube video or a Facebook Live, you've got to be able to deliver what the people who are listening to you wants to hear. Or in a book, you've got to be able to deliver what it is that they want to read. And if I may share, I have Don share the triangle where he draws a triangle. And in the bottom left-hand corner, this is the struggles. And on the bottom right-hand corner, this is where I guess you basically start from and whatever, and then you go to the top, and that's your achievements, and then the line back down to the left-hand corner. All the people inside of that is who you can actually help. And Don, would you share a little bit about that? We got about 1 minute. Couple minutes
Yes.
left, sir.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly, and that you can help people because of where you've struggled, where you've spent thousands of hours, and you have to have accomplished something too. If you're the person who struggled, spent tons of time and didn't learn anything and didn't accomplish anything, you can't help anyone. So really that's the triad. And I do exercises with speakers mostly to say, who is your audience? Like, who can you help? And that's a very, very powerful exercise that I've done from the stage, and I do it with clients.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because if you never accomplish anything, and I know, Brian, you can relate to this, working with people, I mean, people are just going to look at you and say, my goodness, your life's more goofed up than mine. I don't even want to hear anything you got to say or read anything you got, It really is like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that in terms of the timing of writing your book, let's hope that you've accomplished something to get out of your current bad situation. Because if you're presenting a problem and you're not presenting a solution, that is called whining, as Teddy Roosevelt famously said.
Yeah. Want some cheese with that wine, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Like if your friend, if he wrote his book when he was in the jail for the fourth time, it'd be a pretty uninteresting book, right? It'd be like how to land in jail 4 times, right?
Right. It would be a completely different book.
Yeah, I really love the way you put that. It's just whining, Yeah.
Kind
of like
presenting a problem without a solution is called whining. That's what it is.
That's kind of like the story of the guy that says, the problem he had in life was that when he got born, he was picked up by his heels. He was smacked on the bottom by the doctor to get him breathing, and it took him 40 years to get over that.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a lot of people out there who enjoy, their misery, and obviously they cannot help anybody. And also, too, folks, no one wants to be around that person. They want to avoid that person.
Right.
And there's some people, just as sad as it is, they enjoy, complaining and whining and things of this nature. So if you can really help someone, you need to have the courage to step out. And we're going to come back right after the break here. We're getting ready to break in a few minutes or a few seconds. But we're going to give you some more encouragement on how you can actually come out of your shell, because that's very, very important, because you have a story. You are a subject matter expert on your life. And, Don, I tell you, it's amazing how we see people that have the courage to take that first step, isn't it?
Success rewards
action.
Action.
We'll be right back right after these messages.
This show, Your Future Is Now, is sponsored by SpeakersPathway.com. And just like the show, we are dedicated and aligned in perfect harmony with the same vision and mission of helping people to find their future. Is fear holding you back from your calling or your life mission? Do you struggle with taking that first step? If so, Bill Henrich is our catalyst to help you create perspectives with new possibilities that will bring you more peace, more joy, more love in your life and freedom. Do you struggle trying to build your strategy? Do you know how to reach your end results? If not, Gigi Ames is your expert in strategy and helping you create your step-by-step game plan to reach your finish line. For more information on creating the life you want to live, reach out to Bill Henrich. Or if Gigi Ames can help you with building your strategy with your end goal in sight, go to SpeakersPathway.com. That is SpeakersPathway.com.
It's words you never heard.
Did you realize that Twitter is over 10 years old? Twitter was first launched in March of 2006, with the hashtag feature appearing about a year and a half later. Twitter employs more than 2,700 people around the world. Today, there are over 241 million active users on Twitter, with an average of 500 million tweets per day. Now that's a lot of traffic. A lot of new words have been coined from the Twitter app. Tweetheart is your Twitter boyfriend or girlfriend, and Twitterphoria is the feeling you get when they tweet you back. If you don't want to feel like a twittiot when you tweet, There's a whole list of proper twetiquette available. At first, even I was a bit of a Twitter phobe. But if you want to follow me at Too Funny Carolyn, that would be twit-tastic.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Your Future is Now is sponsored by SpeakersPathway.com. It's home of the complimentary gifts. And Dandy Don, would you be so kind as to share one of those complimentary gifts with the audience, please?
Absolutely. If you go to SpeakersPathway.com, on the homepage, right in the middle, it says complimentary gifts. You can't miss it. It hits you in the nose. Just click on that. It'll bring you to a page. And as you scroll down, you see our executive training team. And every one of them is offering a free gift for you. Valuable, valuable stuff. Dustin Matthews, one of our executive team, he has about attaining wealth fitness. And, Dustin said to us when we had him on our show that, we don't learn about simple things about financial wellness and financial discipline. And so he has a really, really valuable tool that if you click right below his picture on the button, you'll get Dustin's valuable tool about getting financially fit.
Yeah. Absolutely. And all of our gifts there at the speakerspathway.com, they are free, no strings attached. They're complimentary gifts. We just want you to have them and be sure and share it with others. And right during the break, actually, Dandy Don, you brought up a good comment about a bad book, and you and I, we know an individual that has a 16-page book, and my goodness, it's more like a pamphlet in it.
Yeah, and all books are not created equally. Now, having a 16-page book is better than not having any book at all. And then there's different types of books, and I've seen people just do a few interviews and put that together and just transcribe the interviews. They have a book, but, in my opinion, if you want to establish yourself as an undisputed expert in your area, it's worth doing the work, maybe not as your first book, but eventually work to the point where you have your own book, well written, edited professionally, not full of errors, that's well structured, working with someone like Brian. If you're not able to write such a book yourself, which most of us are, and most of us aren't, talented writers. And Brian, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your book has to have a very clear message. And I think that it's really all about saying what you need to say and then be done. Now, I'm not advocating for a 16-page book, but I have clients come to me and say, well, how big is my book going to be? I don't know. It depends on what you have to say. I don't know. I can't answer that. And I have other clients who say, well, I had one client who said, my book will not feel like a real book unless it's 120 pages or more. Really? Okay. Well, it turned out to be about 18,000 words. That's not really quite 120 pages. But to make this client happy, I told my graphic designer, I said, this has to be 120 pages. So there were some blank pages at the beginning and at the end, like there always are. And there were some blank pages in the middle because if your chapter ended on the right-hand side of the page, then the left page was blank, and then it started again on the right side of the page. And so my client saw the book, and she says, why are there not very many words on the page? I said, well, you wanted this to be 120 pages, right? Yeah. And you said that you didn't have anything else to say, right? Yeah. There's your book. And in the end, she was very happy, and she cried on my shoulder and said, thank you for helping my baby come to life, that kind of thing. So she was happy in the end. In fact, she wanted me to write a second book, but she couldn't afford me because I did raise my prices, and she screamed about that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do your book for the price I gave you the first time. I just really can't.
Sure, I understand that. It's really amazing because a lot of people get caught up in numbers rather than content.
Right.
And that's what I'm hearing about that. Is don't get caught up in how many pages it's got to be, but how much value can you provide on the pages. That's right. That's what you need to be focused on.
And I've read some books, and I'm halfway through, and I'm thinking, you haven't really said anything. How have you mastered?
Now, you must have been reading my book there, Brian.
I haven't read your book yet.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it's really amazing because I'm trying to think of the quote. You might know it, Brian, or Don, you might know it. a good book is a book that reads you or something like that. That just came to my mind. You recall hearing that or anything?
I don't remember where that comes from.
But you're familiar with it, what I'm talking about?
I think I've heard it.
Yeah. And so that's a good goal to have in mind. You know, like Don likes to say, start with the end result in mind. Who is your book for? Your speech? Who is your speech for? What your talk? Whatever. And work back from there. And it's all focused on providing quality, valuable information to help someone get from where they are to where they want to be, and at least hold their attention. I think that's about the basics of where someone could, start from in writing a book. Would I be correct in that, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always you have to start with your message, absolutely, and have something to say, and serve your audience. Know who your audience is. Have an idea of what your audience wants to know. In fact, when I talk with my clients, I usually ask them, what is it that people usually ask you about your topic? Let's just pretend I know nothing about your topic. What do people usually ask you? Or they might say, well, Brian, what do you want to know about my topic? And I'll come up with a few questions, but they've encountered these questions or maybe what they might perceive as objections to their sales process. What do people do? In fact, I'll tell you, when I wrote my first book, it's called Student Leadership Strategies, 21 Easy Ways to Become a Center of Influence in Your Group. I wanted to write a leadership book for students, for young people, so I could speak in high schools or colleges. And I sat down with my legal pad on a Sunday morning outside, and I wrote at the very top, what makes an excellent leader? My goal was to come up with at least 21 answers to the question. I came up with 30, and when I started writing, I realized that those 30 ideas really merged into 21 anyway, because some of them were very closely related. But my 21 answers to that question became 21 short chapters to my book. And my book was about 96 pages. So your book doesn't have to be really, really long. My first book was 96 pages. And here's the thing. A lot of people don't read books after school, after they're finished with school, high school, whatever it is, or college. They just don't want to read anymore because they associate that with being in school and they just want to be done with that part of their lives. But if you can get through a 96-page book and you can read it in less than 2 hours, you've accomplished something. I read a book. Yay, pom-poms everywhere. So you want to give people that sense of something that they've accomplished. And if you can have a really coherent message and share lots of golden nuggets along the way, then you are perceived as being the expert. And in fact, a little surreal story. I spoke at one high school. And actually, I've spoken at several high schools, but they usually will buy my book for their students. I'll say I'll speak for free as long as you buy a book for every student in the class who's going to be there. And so they bought their books a couple of months in advance. And when I got there, the teacher said, we read your book in class. What?
Yeah.
And we discussed your book in class. And after my talk, they all wanted me to sign their books. And a lot of them had highlights and notes in the margins. And some of them asked me about specific things that I had written about. And I'm like, this is really great because this audience was engaged. Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah. You definitely wrote a tremendous book, and you were kind of like singing their song because they had the attitude of tell me more, tell me more. Yeah. And I'd like for you, if you don't mind, sharing with us back in 2014, you had a tough year, didn't you, sir?
I did. I had a life-threatening illness in early 2013. In fact, it really started even late in 2013, but even more so into 2014, I found myself being really lethargic. I didn't have energy. I lost my appetite. I was leaving work early because I was just physically exhausted. And I remember one Monday after I did my show, it took me every ounce of energy that I could muster to finish my show. And when I was done at 5 o'clock, I went straight to bed. I didn't write about my show. I didn't post it. I didn't publish my show. I went straight to bed and slept through the night. And I did publish my show the next day. And my parents happened to be in Arizona that winter. They had their RV and they were staying about a half an hour away from me. I called them. I said, this is like the 5th day in a row that I've just not felt well. And they said, maybe we should go to a doctor. I said, sure. So I traveled across town and hung out with them, and we went to urgent care. Mom went with me just because, moms want to know what's going on with their kid. So they treated me for pneumonia. They gave me a Z-Pack, and they said, we insist that you stay with us in our RV until you get better. Okay, so 3 days later, we're having breakfast. This is on a Friday. And I ate a half a strip of bacon, and I said, I'm full. And Dad said, no, there's something still not right here. You need to go back to the doctor. So I drove, and Mom was with me. And I remember being ushered back to one of the waiting areas in the back where a doctor would see me. The next thing I remember, the doctor sitting in front of me, Mom is sitting with me, and the doctor saying he's not answering any of our questions coherently in complete sentences. He needs to be taken to a hospital in an ambulance now. And Mom and I looked at each other, and I thought, what? I mean, I had just driven a car like 30 minutes prior. Mm-hmm. So they put me in a stretcher. They wheeled me to a hospital.
Wow.
I remember being in the ER, and the doctor said, we have no idea what we're treating you for. Either pneumonia, the flu, or something else, but we're going to be running tests and you're going to be here a while. I said, oh, a while? You mean like a few hours? Oh, no, a few days, a few weeks, maybe longer. And they mentioned ICU. So I thought, well, something serious must be going on. And they even talked about possibly putting me on a ventilator. I said, what does that mean? I'm so glad she didn't say life support because I would have lost it.
Oh, goodness.
They said, we don't know if we have to yet, but it would mean putting a tube down your throat and having a machine breathe for you. I said, I don't want that to happen. And she said, well, it might. Thankfully, it didn't. And so I was in ICU for 7 days. I was upgraded to a private room for 7 more days. And once I got to that room, I knew that the end of my stay was coming, because I thought, oh, well, if I'm not in ICU anymore, it means I must be getting better. So I started telling all the doctors and nurses, I'm going home soon. I just started saying that. I spoke that out loud to everyone who walked into the room. I'm going home soon. We sure hope so. We would love that. And one doctor, who happened to be the lung doctor, said, yeah, we'll see. I'm like, I'm not telling you anything anymore. But long story short, I did end up getting released. I was on home health care for 3 more weeks. After that, I was on oxygen, and just some very, very important lessons I learned very quickly. Be aggressively thankful for everything, because it's just so important to keep account of what your blessings are. Number 2, treasure your family and friends, because you never know when that's going to be taken away. And finally, leave nothing to chance, or take nothing for granted, because you just don't know whether it's your last day or not. And so here I was at 49 years old. I almost died. I mean, I was told toward the end of my stay, we were not sure you were going to live through this. That's
Holy
sobering.
Smokes.
Yeah, it is sobering.
It really is. I mean, wow, I'm just so glad you had a chance to share that with us. And I mean, when you think about the things you had to overcome there in that illness, my goodness gracious. I mean, Dandy Don, I know, well, we got a break for a message, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back right after these messages.
Your Future Is Now is sponsored by SpeakersPathway.com, and just like the show, we are dedicated and aligned in perfect harmony with the same vision and mission of helping people define their future. You may have heard that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a video is worth 1,000 pictures. Koji Sumaldi says if you're not using video in 2019, you're going to get left behind. Most people feel lost or confused when it comes to marketing. Preston Martelli is a marketing guru whose strategies are both art and science in growing your business. Preston helps you make the right decisions that are predictable, measurable, and scalable. For additional information about Koji, Preston, or any of our executive training directors, go to our website at speakerspathway.com. That is speakerspathway.com.
Derek Thompson, co-founder of the Save the Elephant Foundation, was taking a rescued elephant named Kamla for a walk along the river. As they were walking, Derek decided to stop and take a dip in the water. But when he called to Kamla, who was waiting on the shore, the elephant thought he was in trouble and came running to his rescue. Kamla charged through the water, sheltering him with her body and offering her trunk for him to hold on to. What's another word for a trained elephant? A kunki. Elephant trainers in Asia are known as mahouts. And the padded seat or saddle used to ride on an elephant is called a howdah. Kamla and her mother, Bai Tui, are among the 70 elephants the Foundation has rescued since its inception.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Word.
Well, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jim Grant. Your Future is Now is sponsored by SpeakersPathway.com, and Dandy Don McGrath is co-founder of SpeakersPathway.com. I know we got a lot of good complimentary gifts there, and would you be kind enough to share one with the folks?
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure. So one of the things that I've been a TEDx coach. I've helped people to put together their TEDx talks, and I'm becoming more and more bullish on the power of having your own TEDx talk if you are someone who uses your expertise in your business. Right now, I'm looking for speakers for an event next year. I've got a $50,000 budget. And where am I going to find the right speakers? I'm going to TED.com. So, if you're an expert who uses your expertise in your business, you should have a TEDx talk. So if you go to speakerspathway.com, at the very top in the menu, it says TEDx training. It's a complimentary gift that I put together about what is TED all about, how to win TEDx stages, and then how to give a great TEDx talk, and then how to share it so you get lots of views. Super, super valuable stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's very important because, ladies and gentlemen, Dandy Don is so good at what he does. He did some training with Rotary, and they've just really impressed with him, and they summoned him to do some other things in the future. So we're very, very honored that Dandy Don earned that privilege and through hard work and sweat equity, and that's what it takes in life. And we got our guest here, Mr. Brian K. Wright, and he has Success Profiles magazine, and we were talking about something very, very interesting there. Would you be kind enough to share about who's on the cover of your very first magazine, sir?
That was Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, one of the original sharks. Yeah, that was really great. I had bought the domain for SuccessProfilesMagazine.com a couple of years prior to that. And in September of 2017, I was renewing that domain for the third time, for the third year. And I realized, Brian, you've not done anything with this yet. What are you doing? And I was telling people I might start a magazine someday, but then I started feeling like I need to do something or else I'm just going to be known as that guy who talks about it and doesn't do it. And so I finally decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to put one foot in the water and watch the Red Sea part before me. So I reached out to Kevin Harrington, went for the big fish first, because I'd interviewed him on my show. Now, if I would have not interviewed him first and he wouldn't have known who I was, it might have taken him more than a minute or so to say, yeah. But I had already interviewed him. In fact, I emailed him and I said, hey, Kevin, we want to thank you so much once again for being on my show 6 months ago. Some new things are going on in my business, including the creation of a brand new magazine based on my radio show. This is what it's going to be about. This is the focus of it. And I would love for you to be my very first front cover. We've already done the interview, so no extra time is required. Hear that again. No extra time was required of him. All he had to do was say yes, and Brian does all the work. That makes it so easy for someone like him to say yes, because he's a partner in like dozens, even hundreds of businesses. He doesn't have time to do a lot of extra work. So I made it very easy for him. So, of course, he said, yeah. 90 minutes later, he emailed me back and said, yeah, let's do it. And so I knew he was speaking at an event the first week of December. And so I made sure that magazine was done in November. And so I got copies printed, and I took a few of them to L.A. with me. And I'm based in Phoenix, so I drove. And before the event started, Kevin saw me. He knew who I was immediately because he had seen my picture. I knew who he was, obviously, and shook hands, gave a big hug. I said, I have something for you. He goes, oh, you do? And he knew what I was talking about. I showed him. He's like, this looks really great. He says, I love being on the cover. I said, I know you do. And he said, do you just print this out for events like this and it's digital primarily? I said, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. I printed like 50 copies of this, and I brought some of them with me. He says, well, my talk is going to be partly about digital marketing. Can I show this during my talk? I'm like, yeah, totally. Am I going to say no to that? No. So anyway, it was his turn to speak later in the day. And he didn't speak on a stage. He spoke It was on the floor. There was not an elevated stage at this event, so he spoke on the floor in front of us. And I was in the front row. He walked right up to me. He gave me a high five before he started his speech, and he whispered to me, "Thank you, Brian." I said, "Thank you. You're welcome." And thankfully, a photographer was insightful enough to take a picture of that moment, and I didn't see it until 2 or 3 weeks later.
Wow.
It was very emotional for me to see that picture. I'm like, I'm so glad someone thought of that. And that is the cover photo for my Facebook profile, and I've left it there for over 2 years. And every once in a while, Facebook would said, "You haven't updated this photo in a while." You're right, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, because how do you beat that? I mean, it's really a great story because it illustrates by you going the extra mile and all the things that you did. And most importantly, what I picked up on that, and Dandy Don, I'm sure you did too, you made it easy for Kevin to say yes. And that's very important for anyone that's got a business or anything like that. I mean, because Dandy Don, I know you make it very, very easy for people to say yes to some of the things that you've accomplished in your life.
It's like the fundamental thing about marketing. I think if you look at copywriting, if you think about almost anything in sales, it's a fundamental thing. I just did a call for speakers the other day for this event. I'm looking for 8 different speakers, and first of all, I just put it out like an engineer. I said, "Hey, I've got these speaking spots at this, and here's how you apply." I got like one comment. And I shared it all over the place on Facebook, right? And then I changed it. I said, "Who's interested in a paid speaking gig for one of the largest service organizations on the planet?" I got 50 responses almost immediately. So I made it very easy for them to say yes. So it's fundamental in any marketing. So yeah, absolutely.
I would raise my hand for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really amazing, too, because one of the things I know that you're very good at, Brian, and for me, let me ask you a question. If I wanted to meet some high-profile people, to be able to get more high-profile guests on my show like you and other celebrities, what would be your best advice for a little guy like me?
I would say one of the things that you probably really need to do is go to events. Whether it's a multi-day event, whether it's a local event in town where somebody well-known is coming. I mean, Bill Walsh routinely does evening events all over the country. Then he does big, monthly or quarterly events. He does events all over the place. I had met him. Actually, I think I might have met him originally at an Eric Swanson Habitude Warrior conference because he was one of the speakers. I've met several people on those stages, and I know that if they are on a stage like that, then they're going to be good to go. So I've interviewed a number of people who have spoken on that stage. And sometimes not only should you invite the speakers to come on your show, here's the thing, have something to offer them. I have a show, you have a show. So offer them an opportunity to come on your show if you think they're a good fit. And who's going to say no to that unless they're just really way too busy? Because you're giving them time to talk about themselves. People love that. Sometimes I go because I want to meet people in the audience, and there are some really amazing people who come to these events. If you're, depending on the type of event you're going to, you're going to meet like-minded people there, and just be willing to give first. I think that's really important. Sometimes I connect with people who I know people that I want to be connected to.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, the reason I got to meet Kevin Harrington is I was talking with someone completely different. We were just having a conversation on Facebook chat, and he had mentioned that he was business partners with Kevin Harrington in one of his businesses. And I just said, wow, that'd be really cool. I'd love to interview Kevin Harrington someday. That'd be really great. And he's like, I'll make that intro for you to his assistant. I'm like, okay. And I thought, okay, we'll see if he actually does it. He did it after we got done with the talk. And the very next day, I had a show booked with Kevin Harrington. I was so blown away and impressed.
Oh, yeah. And you know what's amazing, too? A lot of these folks, if you just walk up to them and say, nice to meet you and all that, could I please have a picture of you? And they're very receptive to, a lot of them are, to have their picture because they know that picture is going to get on social media. It's going to get a lot of coverage. It's going to be free publicity for them.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I've got a picture with Brian Tracy from 2006.
Wow.
And it's one of my featured photos in Facebook. And sometimes people ask me, how did you meet him? Well, I got to pay to play sometimes. I belonged to a mastermind program. And one of the perks was you got to get a meet and greet with Brian Tracy at this one specific event. Well, I was first in line. I did not have my own book yet, so I brought one of his books, and I took a picture of him with one of his books. And I'm like, next time I meet someone like him, I'm going to have my own book done. That was a real powerful motivator.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know that Dandy Don, you've also been on stage with Les Brown.
Les Brown, James Dentley, a number of the folks, and John Osseroff, Lisa Sasevich. I shared was on a stage at an event with her. It's fantastic to connect with those people. It kind of elevates you and it elevates them. One thing as you were talking, Brian, was the importance of having some sort of a platform where you could edify people. If you're writing a book and you can do an interview, if you've got a podcast, if you've got a radio show, if you have a blog, you're going to write about someone, these people are looking for opportunities to get their word out. But if you don't have one of those things, you're just going to get the picture with them.
Right. And having a podcast or a live radio show is really the best thing you can do. The barrier to entry is really low now, whereas it used to be you had to go on an AM or an FM station and spend thousands of dollars for airtime. Well, you don't have to do that. We're on TogiNet Radio, and it's a great forum, a great outlet, because there are lots of shows on this network. And so when someone finds TogiNet Network, they can look around and see what all those shows are. And so sometimes you pick up listeners, and sometimes you get referrals because someone heard your show because they didn't know who you were yet. But yeah, doing that is really great. So having a platform where you can edify other people, that's one reason why I do an interview show, because I don't want to talk about myself and do a solo show every single time. I'll do that occasionally where I'll share value and it's just me. In fact, I had a show like that probably three months ago, but in my 7.5 years, I think I've maybe done that 6 times.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because the thing I like about TogiNet too is that they're very professional, and they really look out and try to help their host. And they have I think it's around 10 million visitors a month or listeners a month, and I mean it's a great place to start. And the most important thing is being able to get your information out there. Just start. Just make a commitment to start. Even if you're going to do a Facebook Live, you need some good speaking skills. And that's what Don was talking about with his TEDx training, because I tell people, Don McGrath is one of the best speakers I've ever seen as far as a master speaker trainer. He is a speaking geek. Did you know that?
That's awesome.
I'm blushing.
Yeah, and none of us know where that name came from. But ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Have a great day. Bye-bye.